Good morning.
Good morning.
Hmm. How's everybody's weekend so far? Good, good. Happy to hear it. Sorry I was a few minutes late. Had to reset my computer at the last minute.
No worries.
Yeah, no problem at all. Seems like that's always when your computer or my computer, anyone's computer decides they want to do stuff. It's like, oh, do you have a meeting starting? I think now would be a
Yeah.
really great time for an update or something.
Exactly. They know. They
Yeah.
know. Okay, cool. And any questions before we jump into it? Do we have any questions about anything? Need help with anything at all? No? Okay. Well, we'll jump right into it. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. And we're able to see my screen, correct? Okay, perfect. So today, I know we had just got done working on the mill detail page. So today the thing we're going to be working on is um setting up the mill detail page to bring in the data, go fetch that data, the endpoint for the particular mill that we click on, right? So we're taking that ID param. Let me see. Now, hold up. Let me bring my code over there because now it's not over there. See. Okay. So yeah, we set up the mill detail. Um, we are using the route param to pass that ID and then uh taking that ID and we're doing something with it. Now we're going to use that ID to um, set up a dynamic endpoint that will go, will fetch the endpoint using a temporal literal to get that ID to bring in that particular mill. There we go. And we can see the screen all right. Okay, perfect. All right. So just to give you an example, this is this is taken, we're doing a lookup by this ID, which is going to return one full meal. And as you can see, it is returning the teriyaki chicken casserole. So like I mentioned that this API was a little messy. Uh, so one of the things that we want to take note of is the way it handles the ingredients in the correlating measurement. So you can see here, it is doing the string ingredient one, and it's going all the way to 20. Uh, and then it's matching it with the measurement by doing the string measurement one. So the correlating numbers, and then same thing here, it goes all the way down to number 20. So the thing with this is, not only is it you're having to go find and correlate them by their corresponding iteration, but you also have to you see that they're just strings, but the ones that return values have uh their whatever their ingredient is, but then the empty ones have empty there's just empty strings, but also we get nulls for whatever reason. Not sure why it does that, but it does. So sometimes you might have to deal with an API that has some little quirks like that, and we need to work around those, especially if it's something that we need. You might end up there's typically there's probably going to be a more polished API that you can use, but sometimes it might be best because one's free, one might have like a feature that you really need, or it might just end up being working best with you, or you just might be in a code like if you're working for a company or helping somebody, you might just be in a code base where it's already established and you just have to work with what you have right at that time. So we are gonna have to handle. So today we're gonna be handling merging the ingredients and the measuring appropriately. Then we're gonna have to handle the cases where we have the valid values, and then when the values are either empty string or null, because we those are values that we are expecting, right? So that's gonna be our main focus. Of course, like we're gonna have the so that's what we're looking at, but we're gonna be incorporating the instructions, and then whatever other information that we feel necessary to include in our meal detail page, right? So I'll exit out of that for now. Okay. And then yeah, one thing to note is like um that's typically like the process of when you're going and fetching an API, right? You'll typically see that structure of where you go. You're gonna get, depending on what you need, you're gonna get a hit a endpoint that brings back a list of items that you might need, and then you'll present that list or however, and then you're gonna break it down to, for instance, you might break it down by if we're getting a full list of all the foods. Let me see. If we're getting a full list of all the foods, then we might need to break it down by category, right? We might only want to bring back dessert, so we'll be able to handle options. So when you get this API, you'll be able to like go, as you bringing this in, not only can you make a list out of it, but you can also um, present other items based on what's part of that list, right? So we might, as we bring in this list, we might parse through and then make a category with all the desserts, right? And the items that we bring in, we might, yeah, that we bring in because our API might only bring in a certain amount of items at a time. So we might want to query by desserts. We might want to bring in all the categories and then list all the categories that we are bringing in. And we might want to just show only dessert, right? So we might include a link that only shows the dessert. So it might take our existing list and then just hide everything that's not a dessert, or we might hit another API endpoint that takes us only to dessert. So that's typically a structure you'll see with APIs. And then that includes if you just want to go to a particular item, you bring this list so you can see what items are available to you. But then you can expose like the item ID, like in our case that we're going to be using the item ID, and then we'll click into it. We'll be able to click into it, create another API um, request to that particular endpoint that brings us information about that particular item. All right. So we saw that. So what we're gonna do here is so like I said, we're gonna rework it to um bring in the meal details. Uh we already got it set up to read the ID from the URL, so we're gonna incorporate here, incorporate the ID in this lookup this lookup endpoint. So see how we're using that template literal to go in and then dynamically set what our ID is that we're fetching from the API. So just to start off, we're just gonna go and set it up for the name, the image, and then the instructions from the API, and then we're just gonna render that in in a card. Before we jump into that, do we have any questions about any of this? Yeah, pretty much stuff that we kind of already went over. Let me see. Okay. So this is the mill detail page that we already have set up. We just need to set it up to use um the endpoint. So with this, um I will what we'll do, we'll just use this as like kind of like some practice time to we'll start with a little practice early on. Since this is basically something we already seen, we can go ahead and jump into um just setting this up on our own, right? Notice this is just like a basic div. This isn't set up with a card yet. So you could use we can still use the Daisy AI. We can use like if you want to put in the card, you can use the card component. Um, and then I'll share this link again. And then I'm gonna also share this code with you as a reference so that you can reference it. I can put it in a Slack. One good practice. So like if you are ever, so even like if we were using like a Daisy, let me go back to the card. A Daisy UI, like anytime you need to like use code for as a reference. One trick you can do if you don't want to have to keep switching back from screen to screen, like as I share this, let me see. So I can copy that. One thing you can do for future reference is like you can just, at the very bottom or at the very top, like Brian did with us earlier on. Um, hold up, let me do it this way. Mm, 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 mm. We can do a little block, a comment block, and then you can just paste the code in the same file that you're working in, just so you can have it as a reference as well. Um, it makes it easier if you don't want to go back and forth. That's just an option. If you prefer going back and forth, however works best for you. But just so you have a reference. So I'll share this code in the Slack, and then I'll give us some time to work on this as well. Probably about like 20-25 minutes. So let me get this code shared. I got that shared. And then go ahead. Before we jump into that, I do want to know, um, let me see, because I do realize, so it's still using the use state to set the mill, as you pull it from, the, um, the API request, right? So you pull from the fetch. So we're doing that fetch. We're getting the data. We're transforming it to JSON, and then we're setting our mill. And then you notice that it has the data.mills.0. Even though we're only pulling one item with this endpoint, it's still using the mills uh declaration right here, and it's still an array of objects, but it's just you should only expect one object. Um, but because I don't know what happens with this one issue. Okay, yeah. So if it's not an exact ID, you pull the null. So but yeah, so you should expect only one, but even then you still have to do it in a way to where it's pulling that one particular one, and you do it this way with the mills because it's just going to take that one because it's automatically going to be the first index. And then same, you want to make sure that you're still calling that function in the use effect. And then you can set it up to where your use effect runs every time that the ID changes. So having the ID in your dependency array. So that's if like for instance, if you decide you want to put what's the word I'm looking for? Relevant items, like relevant food items, like items from the same category um or like a real life use cases like items that like people typically look at or that's a similar dish, right? You can put them on that same page for people to look at. So if you had that way, if somebody instead of just reloading the whole page, they could just run that fetch and then update the card with the new data. So that's an option. And then here we're doing our check. If the mill, see we initiated with null. If we don't have a mill, then we're just going to return loading in the meantime. So our loading state. So this isn't necessarily, this is another way you can do loading. You don't have to have like a whole loading use state. And then we're just rendering our items. And like I said, we don't, for the demo, we don't have the card built in yet. But like I said, most of this stuff is going to be setting it up how you want to set it up, starting out right here in this case. Any questions about this before I let you jump into it?
Can you show us your coding on your project one more time for this tab?
Oh, for this tab? So, I have
Hmm.
it shared in the Slack.
Okay,
Yeah, I have it
perfect.
shared in the
Thank you.
Slack for yeah, it's not particularly for let me show you. Okay. Yeah, but yeah, I have it shared here in the Slack. And I just like I was just giving you the example of how like you can copy it from the Slack and you can put it in as a, comment using the comment block, which is the the,
Hmm.
the that
Yes.
little format and putting it in between. So you can do it. That was just an option. Like you can put it in there to have it in the same file so you don't have to keep going back and forth between applications. But I have it in there just as a reference so you can go in and work on it. But
Okay,
that way I was just gonna give you time to I was gonna give you some time to work through it so you don't have to feel rushed or anything like that.
perfect.
All right. And then in that way, as you go on, I gave you like some more time. Like I'm giving you a little bit of time so you can s set it up how you want to. If you want to do like a little quick basic styling on it, because I included the Daisy UI link to take you to the styling system as well. So that way, if you want to set it up as you go along, you can do it. I do want to say like one of the things you want to get used to, like there's instances where you're setting up something you do want to have like a basic structure for it as you setting it up. You don't want to fall into the trap of trying to make it look pretty as you initially set it up the first time, right? Because that's something that a lot of people get caught up in trying to make it look pretty after going on. You just want to set up the basic structure that you know you're gonna have and then improve on it as you go along. All right. Any questions about that? All right. So, I'll let you get work on that. If you need help with anything, don't hesitate to let me know. That's what I'm here for. Even if you're working on something, if you have a question about like why does it work this way or anything like that, um, feel free to ask me. That's what I'm here for, is to explain those type of things to you, right? And then oh yeah, I guess you would need the link. I knew I was forgetting something. I'll send the link for the API endpoint as well. And then I will give us until I give us until 10. I'll say 10:50, 10:50. That should give us plenty of time. If you finish before that, that's perfectly fine. Uh, we could just you don't have to use the full time. Just I just want to make sure you give you enough time to set it up, and then also um to set it up, and also like if we have any questions or anything like that to address them. All right. And like I said, I'll be here. So if you have any questions, just let me know. Okay. Perfect. And just a quick reminder, I know it's a little late, but I put the Tailwind code in, Tailwind link in the Slack, and then I also just want to remind you, I'm gonna put in the Slack as well. But I just want to remind you, you only need to render, what was it, the name, the image, and the instructions from the API. So the name, image, and instructions, just as a reminder. Okay. It is 10:50. How is everybody doing?
Trying to click the right buttons quick enough. So the only thing I'm finding is
Uh-huh.
that I'm trying to resize things to make them look right for the
Uh-huh.
return. So that's where I'm at right now, but it's just taken me a minute to get everything resized.
For the return. Oh, for like what's being rendered.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. If you want a couple, I can give you a couple more minutes to do that if you got that, or if you need help with it, I can help you
Okay.
with that as well.
Can you give me just a couple minutes to try it on my own?
I sure can. I
Okay,
sure
great.
can. No worries. We go till 11. That sound like enough time? Okay. If you need help at all, just let me know. All good?
I'm all better.
Perfect. Still got a couple minutes. Okay, we all good? Still- All right. How was that? Oh, were you trying to say something, Laura? Oh, okay. Sorry. But how was that? It was a little different, right? Okay.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how to make the wall of text go away, how to make that a little bit more readable, but I don't know if are we supposed to be doing okay, we're not supposed to be doing that just yet, it looks like.
You say the wall of text, like,
Yeah, I was trying to make the like I was wondering how to
um,
get the the steps to be more like 1, 2, 3, sort of like that. I was looking around, poking
oh,
around to see if there was anything like that in the tailwind, but I didn't see anything. And then I thought, well, maybe we weren't supposed to be doing that anyway. So
no, yeah, we're not working on that. It's not necessarily the prettiest API, right? So there is a way to make it because like if you can see in here, it has the carriage returns, but it's just not being parsed completely. So there is a way to handle that. Um because sometimes it's just not being recognized. So there's a way where you can explicitly tell it like, hey, uh we need to recognize these things in our string. So there's a way we can do that. We probably won't have time to do that, but you know what? That's some good homework for us, right? You could look it up, or you can even use AI to, teach you on how to get that done as well. But there is just know like especially if it has it like that, there is a way that you can parse through it and return that as well. It's just probably the way that it's doing it in JSX, so that could be an issue, or yeah, just in React in general. But no questions about that. We got that down pretty good. Okay.
Mine's pretty good. Do we need to show you what we have so far?
Um, you don't,
That's fine. I mean, we don't
I
have to. I
mean,
just was gonna double check.
we could, I mean, if you're fine with it, I think we're good right now.
Okay, that sounds
Um,
great.
yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. We might do it at towards the end because we're gonna be reworking how our code is set up anyway. But so we might go through it. All right. No questions, so we'll move on. So as you can see, like I said, the issue that we mentioned is the problem how it's separated. Um, so they're not an array; they just like 20 number fields, the ingredients and the measuring, right? We see the chicken salt, and then here it has the corresponding measurement with the same number. Um, and then here we got the empty strings, but we seen that it also might be a null, yeah, null expression as well. So it might return null. Not sure why, but we just know it does. So we're gonna use the information we know about the API to deal with it, right? So what we're going to do is to be able to um merge them. So we want to be able to incorporate a way to where we don't have to physically go and know what, because there's no way we can know what each ingredient is going to be expected to return and how to address that. We could manually go through, and since we know there's 20 of them, we could manually go through and do 20 of them and evaluate each one. But we already know that's not the best, not the best practice, or also isn't the best for our code, because then it'll look super messy, right? So we can go through, we can iterate through uh each one and then check it, uh and then if it meets our standard, if it has a valid value, then we can return that value, right? But we can also go through and we can generate those pairs ourselves. So in this example, we're going through, we're evaluating each one and we're returning a valid, we're we're returning a valid array. So we actually are going to push them in as arrays, as objects, right? So we're just doing them as objects. So that way for each one, we'll go through and return an array of objects as pairs. One thing to keep in mind here in this particular case, the order doesn't necessarily matter in which order that they can come in. We just have an order, what's it, a list of ingredients with their associated measurements. So we know in this particular case, the order doesn't matter. If the order did matter, we would be able to handle that as well. But for this case, we're just gonna generate. This is gonna parse them in order anyway, but just know in any case that for whatever reason, if the order does end up changing as it's going through, we don't have to handle that case. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and actually create this function to merge the ingredients, right? All right. So we so this is something that we technically could handle in our use effect. Um, you typically you could handle it, but you typically want to, have your separation of concerns. So what we will do is we'll go ahead and handle it after um oops. We'll go ahead and just create a new function after our use effect. That way we can keep it separated, and we can also have it dependent on our mill, because for whatever reason, especially with it being an async function, if our function tries to run before, it can cause timing issues because our function can try to run before our load mill, since it's a asynchronous function. We'd have to account for the function running in parallel. So we might create timing issues. So we just definitely want to avoid that as well. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a function that uses our mill parameter, and then we're gonna take our mill, and then as we go through, as you see, we are doing a for loop. So we're starting, yeah, let I equals 1. So this is just gonna equal like as you've seen, this one, it starts at 1. So we're gonna go through. So I know a lot of times when we're looping, we're thinking of like the index, but in this case, we're trying to address each item that's coming from the API. And we're gonna go through. So it's gonna be a for loop. So we're initializing it as 1, and then while I is less than or equal to 20, we're going to run this loop, and then we're gonna increment each one. So now we're gonna declare our variable as for each iteration, we're gonna go through, we're doing our bracket notation. So remember that we're doing our bracket notation and we're doing a temperate literal to where we are going to uh use that string, so that string ingredient, and then attach that corresponding number to it. So this one's more of like a manual, and since it's only 20 items, it's not very many. It's manual. We're looping through each single one. So every call, we're going through every single one of these and evaluating them. So you want to keep these things in mind as you're going through, because if this was something that had like thousands of things, then we would want to come up with a more dynamic way or a better way a more efficient way to evaluate these. But in this case, it's perfectly fine because it's not a very large thing. But I mean, with it being hard coded items, then you really, you really wouldn't. Like I said, this is also an inefficient API, so you'll see it. It'll be most of the time you're going to see API delivered better, but not necessarily all the time. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll start implementing our merge ingredient function. So we get our function started. And then we're gonna have our pairs, which is we're gonna start it off as an empty array because as we build our list out, we are going to as we build our list out, we are going to add to it as we go on. Now, like I said, we're going to be doing a for loop here. So we're going to do the starting at the 1, going all the way up to 20. Uh, And then for here, we want to remember that as we building out our for loop, it's separated by the semicolon. And while I is less than equal to 20, an increment. So as a reminder, the first one is going to be our what we're declaring. Like, so we're initializing our I to equal 1 in this case. And then the second portion is going to be our conditional, right? So what we're checking to keep the loop going. And then what happens at the end of the loop. So we want to increment our I by 1. All right. Oops. If I can spell. And then we know we're going to want to take the mill. I'm going to do bracket notation with the temperate literal. And it was ingredient. Then our escape for I. Did I spell ingredient wrong? I sure did. And same for the measurement. Good. How did I put it on here? I put measure. I'll keep it consistent. I don't remember. So it is measured on there. Okay. Then we escape that and then I. And then this works because, like I said, we know that the string ingredient one and the string ingredient string measure one correspond with each other. Oh, sorry, I probably messed up your code. Here's the code. All right. So now we know we need to we don't want to push absolutely everything, right? We want to make sure that we're only pushing the valid value. So we don't want empty strings and we don't want the nulls, right? So one thing we'll do is we'll do an if condition, if statement. So if ingredient dot trim. So ingredient is checking if it's an ingredient because we know that an empty string uh inherently is a falsy value. So if you have an empty string and you're checking if it's a valid value, like if you say like if ingredient and if it's an empty string, it's automatically going to recognize it as a falsy value. So it's not going to treat that as that it's a valid value. So if you were ever doing that and you wanted to check that if it's a empty string and you want to consider an empty string a valid value, then you want to make sure you explicitly check for that. But then here ingredient dot trim. So the trim is checking for empty trailing or leading spaces. So if there was a empty string with a blank space in it, or some blank spaces in it, what this does is gonna get rid of those spaces, right? And then make it an empty string. So that way, for whatever reason, if we get uh an empty string from the API, but there's like a space in it or anything with no actual characters, then this is going to eliminate that so we don't get any like false positives, I guess you could say. So once we make those checks, then we're gonna do our pairs dot push. So we want to push our values, right? So we're gonna have a an object, and then since this is a function, we do want to remember that because yeah, we need to add a return statement because we want to return the pairs to whatever calls our function. All right, any questions about that so far? No. So that function right there should um return our pairs, and then one way we could check is we can actually as we can console log it, and we see here that it created our array of objects. which is ingredient, the measure. I don't see, yeah, the ingredient and measure. So this one's the soy sauce, the 3/4, and then we can check. So soy sauce is the first one, and we have that 3/4 cup. So yep, it's working as expected. All right, perfect. So that's just like a way to check. And then let's see. Or yeah, another thing we can also check while we're here. Let me go ahead and bring that back up. There's a shortcut for this, and I know the shortcut, but I always forget to use it. So one thing we can do here in this case is, oh, well, I don't even know that that's the number. We'll come to that. Never mind. Ignore me. Oh, I'm breaking stuff. Oh, some break. I'm out here breaking stuff. I gotta go back to the, what was it? It's this one. Is that the right one? Oh, uh-oh, something's breaking. Okay, that's what I wanted to happen, but it's fine. Not how I wanted it to happen, but it's happened. Okay. So it says cannot read properties of null reading trying to read string ingredient. By chance, will anybody know why we're getting that error? Let's go back to it. So I can tell you it goes back to it being a timing issue. So uh we are not in this particular case, we are not checking if mill is valid. So before we run this, we typically want to make sure that our meal is populated before we run it. So that's why it was working after I added. So when the page is loading, it's calling this console before this ever even affect runs. So one thing we can do is we can actually, since we got that, we can actually put this in a use effect. So sometimes you might have more than one use effect. And hold up. Okay. And then we want this use effect to watch our mill. So anytime our mill changes, we want to be able to do our merge ingredient. We want to return our merge ingredient. But so probably getting ahead of myself. Let me see how we have this planned out. Okay. So yeah, so in this case, we are going to be rendering our ingredients using our merge ingredient, right? So we want to set our merge ingredients Um, so we do know that we can one of the things we can do is instead of going through and then doing it this way, we can actually because we know it's going to be an array, we can actually do a use state. That's more of a React way to do it. Oh, and then we want it to be the array. So, like I said, you can just for clarification, you can see me off. It's I'm a little bit all over the place with this just because the way I set up the examples is like very basic bare. So that way you can see like the thought process of like while I'm going through these things, like realizing how these things can be done as we go along. Like we could, there's a couple different ways we can do this, but being able to set it up in a use state, we can set it up in the use state. But there's like also like with the timing issue, you're gonna run into these time, especially anytime you use a async function. There's you always gotta make sure that the value that you're expecting from the API exists anytime you're trying to access any of that stuff, right? So there's some things to keep in mind. So we want to be able to uh, associate, not associate, but we all want to be able to handle uh, checking these values and then applying, especially like with this one, uh, assigning those values to those to that ingredient. So now we know. So we're checking anytime the meal changes. So we know for a fact anytime the meal changes the ingredients are going to change. So that's why we're doing it this way, is because if we just had like a hard coded ingredients, we can still handle that way, but we'd have to make sure that we're going through and uh checking that our meal and our ingredient is the same because we could have some stale ingredients, our meal can change, and we never updated these ingredients. And then next thing you know, our recipe isn't making sense. So um, that's one of the reasons why we're doing it this way with this use effect that has a dependency on the meal because we know like I said, we know that our ingredients is going to change when our meal changes. So we want to watch our meal and then we want to update our ingredients when our meal changes. So that's why we're doing another use effect that way. So and then sometimes your use effect could be very simple. So, do- so when our ingredients, so when our meal changes, we want to set our ingredients to be the and then we know, so we got our use state is an empty array, and oh, sorry, I'm moving all the place. I don't want to mess. Yeah, I don't want to mess anything up. But we know, this we're calling the merge ingredient function, and we know that it's going to return pairs, which is an array. So they're the same type, right? So we want to be aware of that. But so this shape actually, uh, Let me see. So we're doing merge ingredient. Mill. Okay. So this shape doesn't actually handle if we're first loading in. Let's see. Oop. Yep. So we're first loading in. This isn't going to handle in the case that it's an empty array. Uh, so because mill is going to be null, and then uh null cannot. Yeah. Let me see. Yeah. So this function, we got the pair, so it's not going to be able to loop through a null value. So what we want to do is if the same thing we're doing down here basically. So if mm, I want to say we should be able to. There it goes. So even though like here, if we do the return, just a return just to prevent this from running, it's going to so it's gonna run this use effect and then it's gonna see, okay, mill is invalid, and then it's gonna return, and then after immediately after this the fetch is done running, then that it's gonna set the mill. That mill is set, and then this use effect with the dependency array is watching that mill. Oh, it sees that it's updated. It's okay. It's updated. It's gonna run this again. Now we know mill is valid. So now we're gonna run the set ingredients, and then we're going to you run our merge ingredient function, return these pairs, and then set that as the ingredients. Does that make sense? I'm not moving too fast for us or anything, right? Okay. Sorry. Are we still copying this? We're good. Okay, good. You good, Laura? Are you still typing it out? You good? Okay. So we got our instructions, and then now we want to uh list out our ingredients. Oops, so we're gonna go through and then we are going to create in this case, an unordered list, and then we're gonna map through and then return the item. So one thing I know, one thing we mentioned when we were mapping through you in React, we want to have that key. One thing you can do is if so we have that item, we that parameter, that yeah, item parameter. You usually see things represented as item. That's pretty common. That's a short way, short, or what is it? Common standard that you'll see with maps. You might see somebody who calls everything an item, but like I said, you can even name it. Like if it's meals or ingredients, you can do ingredient uh for that thing. So it's pretty. There's no right or wrong one, but you might see it done different ways. So just so you're aware. But here, this I, so the this stands is the index, right? So typically that's going to represent with the index that it's at. So you might see that done, and a lot of times you might see that done because you might we're in this instance we're turning the item and the measure and the ingredient. The ingredient you can expect it in this case to most of the time be unique, but sometimes with ingredients you never know because there might be the same ingredient and it might have like what is it? I don't know. There might be like an ingredient for the prep and then an ingredient for the actual like what you're gonna do like while you're cooking. I don't know. Uh I've seen that personally, word shape. I don't think it's gonna happen, but just in case you could use the index as a key. So we know that the index as it's going on is gonna be unique for the key. So you might see that done as well if you don't want to use like an item's ID or anything like that. So as it maps through, you can just generate the key that way. And then here, we're saying we're doing the measure and then the item, the ingredient. So we're just doing the measurement and then the ingredient, which I think is pretty common. So we have our instructions. Let's do just because the way the instructions are set up right now. We'll do the ingredients after instructions. You can uh uh style it however you want to, or reorder it however you want to later. And then how we got the so we're gonna do order list. So we'll do an unordered list and then this is what we're gonna do. So we're gonna map through and then for each item that we're mapping through, we want a list item to be created. Oops. Yeah. Hold on, let me make sure I did not capitalize that. Okay, I did. So ingredients map. All these tooltips are so invasive sometimes. And here we got our item and an I index. We're using the arrow function. Key equal I. In this case, it's item dot measure. Item dot measure and then item dot ingredient. So probably not going to look the prettiest, but for just demonstration purposes, getting through it. Okay. We're good on that. Yep. Okay. Well, let's see if it rendered as expected. We did not get our ingredient. Where did I mess up on something? Ingredients dot map. Or well, we probably need to refresh. Nope. So let's see what our console is saying. Not getting error. I Oh, I think I know why. But because no, we do ingredient, so it should have the okay. The return. We're not getting an error. You go ingredients dot map item. For each item in our ingredients. Did I put ingredients? We might need to. I know our ingredients should have. See. I mean, that shouldn't be an issue anyway. Moss. We're setting ingredients, meal. Item dot measure, item dot ingredient. Let's do it's this is because we are returning it. Oh, I did it again. I did it again. It's the curl. Okay. It's the brackets. It's the curly braces indicate that you're gonna it's it's gonna indicate that you're expecting to use a return with the parentheses, then it should return it. Even though I do this a lot, I don't know if you can tell, but that is a common problem for me. Sorry. Does that make sense? Okay. My my little videos were frozen for a second, so I don't know if I cut out at all. Okay. Okay. So now we are returning. All right. Any questions about that? No. Okay. Like I said, so like we're see it's coming all together. Um, like I said, you can we'll get to a point where you be able to style it however you want. And like I said, feel of course feel free to work uh on these like throughout the week anytime you want if you want to like make it look however you want, prettify it, anything like that because like once this is done, this is something that you can add to like your portfolio, right? So like to show people like what you've done because especially at the junior level, like if you're looking for a job with this, Jonas used to tell a story of how like he got his very first coding job because he was all he had to do was show that he was able to do like a fetch call, like an API call, right? Using a fetch, right? So, and I don't think I think my very first coding job, uh, was just me being able to I got my very first coding job just being able to convey like the basic understanding of coding, right? They were looking for a junior level and all they wanted was to see what I understood as a junior dev, like the basic concepts, right? Um and that was what the a small company here in Oklahoma. So um the point of that's just like just showing like being able to demonstrate these things, and even like with an app like this, um, people they'll see like, okay, you understand how to do this. You're pulling this from an API, and they check out the API and they see, and then they see something messy like this, and they understand like, oh, okay, you know how to, make even an API like this conform to what you want it to do. So these are things that people look at. Even like your application doesn't have to be like the most advanced application. It has to show that you know how to demonstrate basic coding principles and stuff like that. Um, I know like you might if you're watching videos like about coding interviews, you might see like the crazy stuff uh like what people have to go through to get like a job at like at Amazon or Google or something like that. That's like the top like 1% of companies, and then companies that want to be like Amazon, they'll do that type of stuff. A lot of times, like I had a coding interview where it's just like, oh, okay, so tell me how like a fetch works, or tell me a time where you had to use uh like this particular method with JavaScript, or if you didn't have a time doing that, how would you use it, or how would it be used in this example? So it's like a lot of times you'll come across like simple stuff like that, just knowing like um the basic things. And that's why I say you don't have to remember all these things, but like even if you know how to get there, like they were like what does like a split method do on like in JavaScript. um you might not know what it does right off the top of the head, but sometimes they'll like ask you like a method that most people don't even remember, right? Even if they've been doing it for a while, they just want you to be able to tell them like, "Oh, I'm not familiar with that method, but this is how I'll find out." Or a lot of times, you can even be like, "Oh, well, you can even look up that method. Like, let me see that method or anything like that." So, a lot of times it's just they want to gauge your ability to find out figure out problems. So just keep that in mind. Like, don't ever feel overwhelmed because you feel like you need to remember all this stuff. You definitely don't. So I just want to keep reiterating that because a lot of times it's just like being able to know how to figure it out, right? So that's definitely something to keep in mind as we're going on. All right. All right. So now that we got our basic uh mill details down, we can also test it. We'll go back to our home. And then now what should happen when you click on one of these, it should take you to that detail page, and it should uh render your card based on that. So now you have a basic what you call it? A basic I can't even say words today, but a recipe app, a basic recipe app from the Mill DB. Oh my goodness. So we go on it, we should be able to click on it. The only thing we will need to include, this will be part of your homework as well, but you want to include like, a way to go back to the list, right? Go back to the list. You can just go back, but you probably want a way to go back to the page in which I'll have an example because that's going to be part of it, because you want to go back, like let's say for instance if we were searching for, let's see, if this was our search, we want to be able to go back and then also go back to that same search, right? Because see if I don't, yeah, see how it goes back and it's a default. So that's going to be part of the homework. So it'll be something I'll give you a chance to figure it out, but also, of course, I'll be here for questions at that point. But the next thing we are going to cover is TypeScript. I mentioned we were going to talk about TypeScript. Um, TypeScript is a typing system. So basically, you're assigning types to like functions, variables, and different like and objects and stuff like that. Um, yeah, function, variable, primitives, and that stuff. Like, so that way your code knows what to expect as you're coding. So you'll hear a lot of times people will complain about TypeScript because it's annoying. Because while you're coding, it's constantly throwing errors out at you. Gives like, hey, this doesn't match. Your code doesn't match. It's not the expected type that we expected from this, right? This is not the expected return from this function. So it's yelling at you while you're coding. A lot of people don't like that, but it's also helpful because you're not running into errors after you already built your application out and deployed it and stuff like that because you were expected you there's some things that you just won't get an error from because you expected a certain return type. But like for instance, like the mapping, you won't get an error until that function runs and then it tries to run that. And then as you've seen a lot of the time, it'll like just not render your, like in our instance, because we didn't set up the error handling in this one, but it's not going to throw that error and say, hey, I expected a array of objects or array, yeah, I expected an array, but all I got was an empty string or a null or something like that, right? So TypeScript helps you find that error before you even like leave the coding, right? Like before you, even if you're running your dev server, before it runs in your dev server, it tries to throw it in your face right then and there. So it's meant to be not necessarily annoying, but it's meant to be aware as you go on as you're coding. So we'll go into uh so like and it's especially helpful when we're dealing with an API like the one we're dealing with right now. Uh So yeah, so like I said, the editor knows your oh yeah, and it also gives you additional autocomplete options, right? Because like like if we tell it that we're expecting the uh, this shape, if like I'm expecting this shape, uh, but even if we're expecting like if we only want the ID, the name of the mill and the picture and the instructions then we're telling it, okay, it knows that's what we want, and that's what we're gonna access every time we use this. Then it's gonna say, okay, hey, you're missing your thumbnail, your picture. So that's something that it can do for us as well. So the basics. If you as you read through the homework, you probably remember some of this. Uh, you're gonna annotate a value with the colon and then the type. So whether it's a string, number, Boolean, so the primitives, all that, right? So here in this instance, we're doing a title instead of just instead of it just being title equals tacos, is we're doing it okay. Title annotated that is going to be a string. So, hey, this title should be a string, and then in this case, that string equals tacos, right? So that's important because, like, so for instance, if we try to annotate it as a title and we go in and then we try to assign a number to it, it's going to throw an error for us, right? Or if we, let's say we try to say that in this case, we got titles or count, which is a number. We're declaring as a number, right? And equals 3. But let's say we tried to make our title equal our count. Well, TypeScript knows that count is a number. So we try to make title equal count, it's going to throw an error. It's going to say, hey, this is returning a number. It should return a string. So whatever value that you're trying to assign to title should return string. So even as we're going along and we get into it, if we try to assign something, a value, a variable to another variable, and that variable they don't match, we'll get that error as well. So that it's good in that sense. Like I said, it sounds kind of like annoying. That's how a lot of people describe it. But most people who love TypeScript, they understand that it's annoying and they love it because it's annoying in that way, right? So the that's something that you're going to get used to. And it's also really good. I think it's good as you're coding as well because it does help you make those connections and make you more aware of those things as you're going on, as you're going like coding and as you're learning, you become more aware because TypeScript is throwing those errors at you. You're getting those errors right then and there, and then you're making that connection right then and there while your brain's in that mode, right? Because if versus going in and you're like, okay, it should work, and then you hit it, and then you get that map error because it's trying to map through a string when an expected array. Now you gotta go back and you gotta go in debug mode when here you're in coding mode and then you're making those connections as you go on. So then we have the Boolean as well. So the is ready is expected to be a Boolean, true or false. And then so we have what the array, so what how arrays work in this case. So like we have an array, the tags is gonna equal is gonna be string and then followed by the array, the empty brackets. So this is just telling TypeScript is like, okay, this is going to be an array of strings, right? So it's going to be equals spicy, all of these. So everything in this array should be um strings, right? So if you threw a number in there, you would get error that, hey, I expected this to be nothing but strings and I see a number in here, right? And then there are ways because obviously an array doesn't always have to be just strings, right? There's ways that we can tell it that, hey, this is going to be an array and it should only have object, or yeah, this is going to be an array and it should only have booleans and strings or numbers and booleans, right? So there are ways to tell that, and then there's ways to tell that it's going to have like objects in it as well. So we'll get into that. An interface is basically just describing the shape on the object, right? So we have like let's say we are going to have our mill object like from our array or from our API. So we're telling it, like I mentioned, we're telling it, hey, this is what I expect it to have, right? Uh, but you can also tell it that you want it to have that something's optional. So you indicate optional by doing the question mark. That tells it that it's optional. So everything else here, like if you create a mill object, right, it's going to expect that object to have all of these except the category. So all of this is required except the category because we told it it's going to be optional. And as you see here, just like the variables ID, we're telling it that the ID is going to be a string. The mill name in this case is going to be a string. But you can tell it's going to be whatever. Like you might have like a count, and you're going to want to indicate that it's going to be a number. These are called unions. So it's indicated by this little straight line. I always forget the technical term, but you'll find it on your keyboard next to the the bracket to close the array. I forget the bracket name. Oh my goodness. They were but yeah, the bracket yeah, next to the closing for the array bracket. Um you shift that one, the one where you're shifting, that little straight line. You'll see that and a lot of time for like the basically what was it? Not op. I guess you can consider like your options. Because like this is telling it that it can be any of these values, right? So it could be a string or it can be null. So you can even have it to set up where it could be string or a number, right? So it could be string or a number. So when any value that you pass through assigned to this one should be a string or null. And if it's not, you'll get that error, that warning telling you, hey, this is not a string or a null. And then with TypeScript, it also won't let you it'll also throw typing errors at compile time. So when you're trying to build your application out, it'll say, hey, we got these type errors, right? Like these errors that these typing errors, so these errors that like where I expected this, but I got this. So you will see that as well. And then you can also, as you're coding, you can also set the strictness uh of like how strict you want it to be because there's it's not in here. Do I have it anywhere? Yeah, no. There's another one also for like the string, number, boolean, but there's also if you are accessing like an API that might return a string, a number, or anything you don't know what to expect from it, you can also do any. The word any, like ANY. So that's telling it can this one can be anything, right? But you might have it set up to where you want it to be strict to where you don't allow any, because you might there'll be some code bases where you'll go in and you'll just see any thrown in anywhere. Uh, but any's good. Like if you just want to get to, you can use any, like if you're using TypeScript to get to a point to, so you can get it to testing because you just want to get something working, right? At that point in time, at that moment, you don't care about typing as much. You just want to get something working and then you want to see how it works, how it interacts with your code and stuff like that, and then you want to start narrowing down the typing. So that's an option as well. But so that's uh I mean what you probably already seen when we went through the TypeScript reading. But do we have any questions about TypeScript so far before we jump into it? Okay. So that was just a basically like a little uh crash little uh reintroduction of it, little crash course. So next, when we come back from break, we're gonna actually go through our code and we're going to uh refactor it in TypeScript, right? So we're gonna install TypeScript and then we're gonna refactor our code to work in TypeScript. All right. So if we don't have any questions, I'll go ahead and Uh, we'll go ahead and just break it out. I think we'll be good to come back at 12:25. Sound good? All right. I'll see you then. All right. Hope we had a good break. Whew. All right, we can hop right into it. Okay, so how we typically work. So, like I mentioned, you can use so the interface will was to basically describe the shape of a object. So here we have that mill interface with ID mill, string mill, category, and instructions. And then you can have the mill, the interface. So you can have you typically have like interfaces for your props as well. This one seems like a little strange because why not just use the mill interface, just a basic bare mill interface for the prop instead of declaring a new mill card prop. So it's just because right here we're doing the mill, but also we might end up adding mill card um yeah, mill card props as we go on. So we might have different props that we want to add in addition to this. So this is just our mill card, our mill prop, right? Um so like we might end up adding like background color, right? Like you might have a background color prop or um a what was it? Just a font color prop or something like that, right? That you might add in addition to. So this is just demonstrating that practice of having like an interface for the props as well. So you typically have an interface for your props. So if we had like for our what was it? Maybe our details. I don't know if we have a prop for anything. Oh yeah, we had our body. So our data, right? Our data, we would have like a body props as well, like an interface body props, right? So you would typically see it for like different props. In this instance, so this is the function mill card. This is our component, right? Our mill card component. And here you see that the prop is in a the curly brackets. So here you have it in the curly brackets because you would name out all the props as well, right? So for an example, like if we had the this is probably gonna air out, but it's fine. Body props. Uh, did I do that right? Yeah, I'm doing equals. Oops. It's like you kind of like a function. So you do the body props, and it knows that it uses the like the title case, like I always forget the name. But yeah, so we have the is it camel case? I think that's camel case. So just like our components, we want to capitalize even like the starting of the name. Excuse me. So we have our data. So we have our data, and then we'll put our data as any in this case, right? Because they'll say like that's that any, and then we might have a color string, and then let me make sure because I always forget. Oh yeah, cool keeps. So color and then size, or we might have to do a number. It's doing, hold up. But so in this case, so like you see, because this is only it only has one, but um, so in this case we have that mill, uh, like just like how we have this data, but then we would do the body props. So you don't have to follow along because I'm just showing you how it would look. We haven't installed TypeScript into our project yet, so it's not gonna act correctly. I just want to give you a demonstration of what it looks like. So here, like normally you would see an error here, because TypeScript be telling us that, hey, these are all required and I'm not seeing them. So we would add color. So we have the object side, yeah. So you see we have it wrapped in those curly braces, and then we use the colon with the body prop. So the body prop knows that it has this composition, so that is telling it, okay, it should have all of those items in it. And then, so that's what it'd be looking at. Otherwise, if we didn't have this interface, we would still be able to represent it in this way. So we'd be able to do data string is gonna capitalize color, or I put data as any actually. So we did data any. Oh, it's gonna fight with me. But data any, uh, color, a color string, just like how we have it in R, and size number. So if we didn't do the body props, we would uh just type it out this way, and that's how we would represent what it is in that regard. So like I said, the interface is just like basically like if you see interface, you're thinking like object. And then so we'll go ahead and clean this up for now. Okay. So I just wanted to demonstrate that. Um and then for use states, use states a little bit different. It uses the angle brackets. So you would declare it normally, but then right after the word use state, you use an angle bracket, and then you annotate what the type is, right? So it's gonna be string, and then if we have mills and mills is just like an array of mills, then it's gonna be the mill. So uh it's gonna be a mill and it's gonna be an array of mills. So obvious, like, so we know it's gonna be an array of objects, right? So mill is referencing that interface, which is the shape of that object, the object that we're expecting, which is this, right? So we're gonna have an array of these. That's what that's representing. And then we're initializing just like regular use state, uh, just an empty array. Just like that one is empty string. So the angle brackets and then string. So that takes some getting used to remembering, but yeah. So what we're gonna go ahead and do, we're gonna add TypeScript to our project. So with TypeScript, it has the tsconfig.json file. So this is just uh another config file, and it's telling us how our project, how what we want to configure our TypeScript to be, right? So look, in this instance, we're telling it, hey, we're using React JSX. So TypeScript out of the box works with JavaScript expression, so React. And then this is the strict, like what I told you about mentioned earlier, you can have it for that strict typing, which is true, which means it's gonna tell you, I think strict's gonna tell you like to avoid just using any, right? I don't think it errors out necessarily, but it gives you like a little warning, like, hey, avoid using any. You have to implicitly like use any type, like you have to, there's a command you can use to tell like, hey, like I'm explicitly setting this to any. So like, and then the include is just going to tell you like it's going to include everything in your source. So everything in here is going to type, right? It's going to check against the typing, make sure it's typed appropriately. So we'll go ahead and I'll put this in the Slack as well, uh, to install TypeScript. Be the TypeScript. All right. So then we're gonna go ahead and where's my I don't know. Okay, so we can get rid of this one. I could have had that one. Okay. Actually, yeah. So we'll go ahead and install it. So with this one, so let me actually, yeah. So one thing to keep in mind, I believe I mentioned when I first mentioned TypeScript that a lot of packages have their own types included that come with them. So React has its own types package, and a lot of times you gotta install them separately because not everybody uses TypeScript. So you in this instance, we're installing here three different packages. We're installing TypeScript. Here, then we're installing the types for React. So we're installing React types packages. So, and then we're also installing React DOM, right? So, what's happening here is they include their own typing. So that way, as you're using these packages, they're appropriately typed. So they're not throwing any errors like throughout your package because they're not typed, right? So they're typing them in the back end. Go ahead. All right. So now we have TypeScript. And then I'll send a copy of this as well. So we're going to create a new file. So normally, if you remember when we started this project, we had the option of setting it up, starting it off with TypeScript. Um, but so normally when you're like initializing a new project, you can have it set up, configured with TypeScript by selecting that option. But we started off with JavaScript, so which is fine. So we're gonna go in our root directory. I shared the tsconfig in the Slack. We're gonna create a new file. It's gonna be tsconfig.json. And then we'll just take that code. This is the MailDB module for TS. Let's see, why is it? So it's giving us this little error. Well, giving me this little error. So let me see why it's throwing this error. Okay. Okay. Interesting. I just want to see. Let's see, because well, first, actually, so let me see. It might be because let's see if we t okay. So I'm gonna rename this file, the mill detail page. I'm gonna rename that uh with the oh, I messed it up. With the TSX. So with TypeScript, instead of it being JSX or JS, it'd be TS or TSX to represent that as a type. So I'm gonna change that in the C. So now you see, as I changed it, we immediately started getting new errors that wasn't present, and it's because all these items are not typed. So that means our TypeScript is working, and then you see as soon as we added that file, that error went away. So that was just more of like an indication error to tell us that we don't have any TypeScript files. But now you
Um,
see that yes,
Oops, I'm sorry. I was just going to say
no
I
worries.
still have that error at the top, even though I changed the thing to TSX. I still have a little error at that opening curly bracket on the TS config JSON.
On the TS config JSON. Okay.
Mhm.
Let's see. And then and you have the mill detail file open.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
And are you getting any of the like TypeScript looking errors? Like, are any new errors on that page at all?
yes, I do have a bunch of those.
Okay. So it's probably okay, so it's probably working. It probably just hasn't updated yet that
Okay,
it recognized it. You can even try closing that file, the closing that TS config. If it's open, try closing it
okay,
out and then
okay,
reopen it. But sometimes, yeah, sometimes it's just the editor hasn't caught up necessarily.
okay, okay. I will just be
Let's see.
patient.
Yeah, if not, is it still giving you that same error or is it a new error? I
It
should.
is still giving me the same error. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. We'll see. As long as it's recognizing the type errors. So so this is what I mentioned earlier about something ha implicitly having an any type. So parameter mill implicitly has an any type. So it wants to make sure that we are declaring those, like if we have anything that's a any type, we explicitly have to like say, hey, this is an any type. Um Elizabeth, are you good? Everything good on your end so far? Okay, cool.
So far,
Okay.
I don't have anything breaking at the moment, but
Okay.
I'm not sure that it'll stay that way.
Yeah. Laura, also, yeah, if you want to, because if it's gonna bother you or nag at you or anything, you can try re closing and reopening the editor as well. That's also an option. Um, because then that might fix it. But sometimes, uh, yeah, sometimes like it's just an editor out of being out of sync. But if it's giving those like if you go over like the mill or something, one of these, and it has like any type, like a TypeScript related, like you'll see right here where it says TS. If it's giving you a TypeScript error, then that's a good sign.
Okay, it is giving me that error, so
Okay.
that sounds good.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. Yeah. But you can see so in this mill, if we explicitly give it an any type, it gets rid of that error. Not good practice, but there are times where it's necessary to have an any, like you actually need an any, but you don't want to escape. It's counterintuitive. You're using any to get like rid of all your errors, because then like why are you even using TypeScript if you don't want to use TypeScript? You know, but it's so that's one thing to keep in mind. Let's see this one. So property string mill does not exist on type never. So there's some errors that you'll see like here, like because this is being derived from it being like any type. Let me see. So yeah, so even if we explicitly describe any, so this is like um TypeScript's not seeing the how we're getting this string mill, right? Like we haven't typed anything, so it's not seeing like how we're getting this right, string.mill. So type any, it's saying this because since it's any, w- TypeScript is seeing it as you'll see like a similar error to this where it'll say undefined, but TypeScript is seeing this as like, hey, like this is any, so this could never be a type where you could like use the dot notation on it, or um it can be another type completely or something like that. Um so in these type of cases, if we're going to be using any, we still got to do a little bit more work because we have to make sure that this is going to be a type where it understands that this is going to be a type to where it could use this dot notation, right? Uh, so we be I'm not gonna get into it right now. I don't want to get ahead of myself. So we will get into that though, because there are ways to handle that because even on those union types we talked about, oh, I passed it. Did I? Nope, right here. So this union type, right? String or no, right? So if you have a type, if like we are expecting this to be like a certain type, but if it's a union type where it could be a string or no, well, we're gonna have to do a check to make sure that it's a string first. So we'll have like usually like a if condition, say, hey, if uh you could be like if string instructions, right? Because if it's no, then it's not gonna be string instructions. So you can do if string instructions, then you could have it do that check, and then it'll satisfy that and be like, okay, well, I expect this to be a string in that case, right? Or a valid value. Sometimes it might have to be more explicit than that. You might have to like check, hey, if this is a string or something like that. Say, hey, if this is a string, then use this method on it because you'll usually get those if it's like uh a type specific function, right? Or yeah, method. So like if it's something that only works in arrays, then you got to do a check to make sure it's an array first. Or if it's something that only works on strings, then you got to do a check to make sure it's a string first. So you'll see a lot of those errors because uh type like I said, a lot of people get annoyed by that because TypeScript is like checking everything like in terms of typing. All right, so we got that set up. And then it seems like it's working right accurately for now because we're getting our typing errors and all that stuff. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna rework the mill detail into TypeScript just so we can see like uh we see that benefit that we're getting from a TypeScript from being able to use TypeScript. So in this case, we'll go ahead and yeah, we'll go ahead and for instance, let me see. We got our meal. Oh, so we are so like I mentioned earlier, we don't necessarily oops, TypeScript. Okay. So we necessarily don't have to if we, even if we're using API, we don't have to ooh, this is yeah. We don't have to use like absolutely everything if we're gonna parse it, but like since we're assigning here it goes. Since we are assigning our mill to a use state, because we're gonna be given these types as well. Um, there's a way to handle it. So for instance, let me see. Okay, yeah, here it goes. This raw mill. So we have this raw mill, this interface. It's using a index signature. So what this is doing, and you see it's using a union as well for a string or null, because we know that it's going to be a string or null coming from the ingredients, right? So what this index signature is doing is saying, hey, we have these values that we necessarily don't know what to expect, right? Uh, because they could be, since there's a lot of them, they can be named, these like key values are gonna be, they could be anything, right? Oops. So we know we're gonna have like a key that's gonna be a string. So that's what the key string is, saying that, hey, we're gonna see all these keys are strings. So, hey, we're gonna have all these keys that are strings. Keep clicking on the wrong. And then their value is gonna be uh string or no. So that's what we're expecting from that. So that's why we're having this set up. So we can even indicate that. A lot of the time, so this is yeah, a lot of times you'll see like the types declare outside of the component. Um so you would see like the yeah, we'll do the raw mill. So raw mill just I think I did that because I'm not sure what my mind space was with that. Oh, because it was basically the mill, just like the raw components of the mill. So raw mill, and then we're gonna have that. Ooh, let me see what is the key string. I think that's how we had it set up. Yep. And then string no. So that's that interface for it. And then so we're applying it here. So we're using the angle notation. We're gonna do the raw mill. Oh my goodness. Mm, 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 mm. Oh wait, this is yeah, no, this is right. This is no, because we're expecting. Oh, that's what I forgot. So, yeah, so we have to still do the union type because even though we are accepting null values, uh we still want to declare it here uh to make sure it evaluates correctly. Oh, that's what I forgot about. And now it'll take that null value. Because so this is just so we can declare this null so it's not valid when there's no mill there. Uh so just to clarify, we got so this is saying it's gonna take a raw mill because this null, they're not on the same level, just to clarify. So this is saying we're taking this raw mill, we're taking this use state and it's gonna be a raw mill, which our raw mill is an object or it's gonna be null. So the whole value can be null. And then once we have a raw mill, we can go into our raw mill and it can return it's gonna return key keys that are strings, and then it's going to either return a string value or a null within it. Just to clarify, because it can seem like some things are like overlapping or redundant, but it just you just gotta it takes some getting used to orient your mind towards how like it's react interacting now. These tooltips. So now we have our mill. So now we want to tell our mill, our function that our mill is going to be in that shape. Or we probably don't actually. Let's see. Let me see. And then I want to say, hold up. So we should if we're just doing like the one prop, you can just do it with the without the brackets. You can just declare that prop without the brackets. It's just if you start adding more props, you're gonna have to have those brackets. But both ways are valid. And then- So we see we're getting this error now because oh, nope, oh, I got rid of that error. And then actually got rid of our any type error. Okay. So yeah, with it being this way, we don't have to handle the that any type error that we were getting. But now remember I mentioned that we do want to with functions you can declare the return type. So here, remember we're expecting to return the pairs, which are going to be a array of objects. And then for this instance, we're going to have our array of objects. There's going to be this ingredient and then a measure. So even though this is like those ingredients or something that's going to be determined from the API within the code, inside this function, you can still declare it out of here, outside of the component function. So it's going to be ingredient. Oh, wait, so in this case, yep. So we know at this point, we have been taking like in the raw data to oops, I use the gun. And then with these, just like regular objects, it's valid to use either to commas to separate them or the semicolons. Um, because objects are weird like that. But you can use the semicolon or the commas to separate them. Okay. So we have our ingredient interface. And then, so now, like I said, we want to, so this, we're adding this one after the function, right? So this is, you gotta take it as it being the whole, this comma is to type the function itself, right? So this is just telling it what we expect the return, the output from this function to be, which is going to be the ingredients, but array of ingredients. So this is going to be an array of ingredients. And then here this is are going to be an array of ingredients as well, because this is going to be essentially what we are outputting. And then tell it it's going to be an array. All right. All right. So now here, things are looking good on this M, except for some reason, our measure is getting this error saying this type string null is not assignable to type string. Type null is not assignable to type string. So I'll see if I'll try to see if you can kind of figure out why it's giving us this error. It's a little tricky one if you're not exactly sure what to look for, but it covers something we did talk about, which is the check, right? Uh, if you have those union, if you especially if you're using the union type or something like that, uh, or if you have values that can be nullable or anything like that, that can come back null, then we want to do those checks to make sure that those are those type of values. So since this is in a if statement, so TypeScript is able to recognize that we did this check, right? We checked if it's ingredient and if it's ingredient.trim, which is not going to return a nullable value, uh, then that means in these cases, ingredient will is only ever going to be a string, right? So TypeScript knows that, so it doesn't have to error out on here. However, it doesn't know that for measure. So measure can still come back null because these values here it can be null. So what we need to do is we need to tell TypeScript that which is this value I always forget the name of this one, but I forget the name of a lot of things. But so here you can see that we are going to tell TypeScript, hey, this is either going to be a measure, which is going to be a valid value, but if not, if it's a falsy value, if it's going to come back to one of those falsy values, which is going to be a empty string or something, or like the null, if it's going to be a null, so it's telling if it's going to be like one of those values, it's going to be no, or it's going to be a null, then make this just a empty string. And the reason for that is because we are expecting that we might just have an ingredient, right? That doesn't, it's just like one of, like if you have an egg, right? Uh, there might be like five eggs, but it might just be one egg, and that might be represented by just like an empty string instead of having one. I don't think that's the case with this API, but we are gonna handle that edge case just in case because we don't know. Like from if we were working based on what we've seen with this API, the only thing we can assume is that it's going to be a little bit messy. So we want to work with those edge cases, and it's good practice to work with those edge cases anyway, just in case like they might update the API or something like that as well. So I'll go ahead and add it here to this to our code. My comp For some reason my computer's being a little slow, so acting a little funky. We still good? We still following along on that one? Any questions? It's yeah, you're not gonna remember all of this right off the bat, but it's gonna be one of those things you just practice with. Let's see. So now you see, as you've seen, now it's returning. It's working not working as expected, but it's not returning any errors. So that means we got it set up properly to where we're passing in. We told it that, hey, this is gonna be what we're gonna pass into you as a prop is gonna be a raw meal, and it's gonna return array of ingredients. And here this is represented because the pairs that we are turning here is the same has that same declaration, which is going to be the ingredients, array of ingredients, and but we're initializing it as an empty array. So now we're getting another error. So this is to be expected, of course, because we had something that wasn't typed, and then we turned it into a TypeScript file. So now we gotta just dress all these up. So we get an argument of type ingredients. Array of ingredients is not assignable to parameter of type set state action. Never type ingredients. Array of ingredients is not assignable to type. Array of never type ingredients is not assignable to type never. They did TypeScript's a little weird in how it does this. Um, but now but it tells you it's telling you like where it's what it's evaluating to where it's getting these errors from, right? So the merge ingredients. So we're running the merge ingredients in set ingredients. And as you can see, we're getting this issue because we haven't typed our ingredients yet, which for use state, we use angle brackets. Oh, no, I said no. Oh, so we add ingredients to our use state, typed it, and then that immediately got rid of our typing error on there. So you typically see that like that never like that type of never or something like that error is usually indicating that like we're missing a typing somewhere. We need to there's like we need to adjust that typing. All right. So that was it for that. All right. And now,
I
yes.
I missed what I cannot find what you just did to
Oh,
fix
what I
the merge ingredients thing.
Yeah, I should have been more explicit. So we're getting this error because we're where it says set and the set ingredients merge ingredient where we use the merge ingredients function, right? That's where you're getting
Okay.
that error, right?
Merge ingredients. Okay. It's roughly
When you're
round
calling the
line.
merge ingredients inside of the set ingredients.
Yes. Okay. Yes, I'm there.
So the reason for that is because it's because of the output of the merge ingredients. So remember so let me also explain that. So we did tell TypeScript what type of output we're getting from this merge ingredients, right? So TypeScript, our project now knows that merge ingredients, this function that we're calling inside set ingredients, is going to return an array of ingredients, right? However, we haven't told set ingredients in our use state, because that's what we're calling it's our use state, right? We're setting our use state. We haven't told our use state that it's going to be set to an array of ingredients. So what I did was I used the angle brackets to right after the use state to tell it, hey, you're going to be getting you're going to be set to an array of ingredients. So the ingredients, this interface, ingredients with the array, and to tell it that it's going to be an array of ingredients. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yes, I think so. Thank you. I'm getting a little bit confused with ingredient versus ingredients. Um, like I'm never quite sure if I am using the right one. But yes, that seems to have fixed that for me now. So that's
No
good.
worries.
Thank you.
So, oh, absolutely. So in our context for the ingredients, what was it? So I think, yeah, so in this context, we are doing it to where so ingredients, because this is a array of objects, right? Which represent our ingredients, which is you know what? I can do let me do this for hopefully it'll help. So, which is, hold up, let me do it like that. Ingredient equals, it's going to be an array of items that equal this shape. Uh, ing ingredients or ingredient, and then measure. So I put measure because this is how the API did it. It just string measure. Measurement sounds better. Really, we can put measurement, but I just put it just to match for simplicity, just to match the API. But we can put measure, because then we'll be calling measure from the API, and then we'll be calling it measurement while we're in like the same code. But well, uh, I'm rambling. But so okay, but this is what ingredients, right? It represents. So it's ingredients is going to be an array of these. So it's going to be multiple lines of an ingredient and measurement pair because we created these pairs. When you see with the ingredient, that just means that we broke it down from that API. We took this API, and instead of it being separated like this, we took the matching ones, the string ingredient, and then we paired it with the matching string measure, and we just made it one. So the ingredient means that we isolated it essentially, and we just we put it in its own pairing, and then we just like I said, hold on, let me make it accurate. And we just kept doing that, right? So for each ingredient in the list, it'll go. It just went through each one and it just kept making them. So every time it found one that was valid, because we did our check to make sure that it wasn't empty. Every time it found the pairing that was valid, it just did it. It just added it and it just kept adding them until there was no more valid ones. It just added every valid one because we're checking every single one. We're adding it to this list. So when you see ingredient, especially when we did the map, yeah. So well, we didn't even call it ingredient there, but that's what ingredient. So if you're seeing just ingredient, then that's what it means. So we're going through and this is temporary because this only exists like this in this shape. This variable like this one, it exists inside this for loop. So we're declaring it temporarily in this for loop so we can assign it. And then we're passing it through, like see how we're pushing that like into that state. We're pushing that into here. So we aren't directly we are calling it in there, but anywhere else we're not directly uh accessing it as ingredient right now. We could well because like yeah. We are actually like right here. And so this ingredient. So we are accessing so that this array that we created, we assigned it here to ingredients. So we assigned it here to ingredients. So let me take that back. Yeah, we assigned it to ingredients. And now this map is accessing this array. It's going into this array, and then each item we're going in, and then we're accessing that ingredient. I know, I know this is a lot. It's not necessarily better than not making it less confusing because it's still a lot. But I just kind of want to build that map it out for you to where it's going. So in the context of the actual like functional code that's doing work, that's not just like part of the typing system, that's doing that work, that's what we're going through. But in terms of like ingredients, so like that's another way you can use to identify it because if it's like the camel case where it's the first word, yeah, the first word is capitalized, that's telling you that it's not like a normal function or something like that. So like even with our components, we even identify our components that same way we camel case when we tell them, hey, this is not a normal function. This is like a special function, right? In this case, this is a component. In this case, this is a interface. And the typing system even does a good job because it's color coded, right? You can even use the color code. So interface and like our types, like they use this color, this green or blue, whatever it is. To me, it's green, like a greenish bluish color, but it's using this color and it's identified the same way throughout our code. So you can see, so you know that it being that capital I, um, and then that capital ingredients, and then it being used in this case, we're using it for our typing system. So you'll see it follow usually following a colon. So uh so that's the difference between this ingredient. I know it can get confusing having items that are similarly named, but they look different. They have that different shape, I guess you could say, with the capital I. Um, so it does take some getting used to because like it was normal for me to be confused as well, and it's a typical process. But once you get used to it, you start knowing the signs like, hey, this is a interface, but then it's also followed by this array. Oops, not put it in there. And all that different stuff. So I hope that helps. It might not necessarily make the most sense right now, but hopefully it helps create some type of visual. But
One question I have about that. So if it's a capital I in this case, is it always ingredient or ingredients? Um,
so it is. So for the naming convention, so because this is oh, I see what you're saying. So I did put ingredients. I think the more technical, the more accurate will be ingredient because so I see why you're probably getting confused because right now it'll probably make more sense if it was an ingredient because I said an array of ingredients would sound like it could be an array of ingredients that are arrays. So it could sound like that. So I think the more accurate version would be ingredient, and then with this capital one, so then you can make it
Hmm.
without S, and then we just have to update it. So I see what you're saying. I see why you would have got confused by that because yeah. So then by itself, it is just an ingredient, but then
Okay.
we put the array out and it makes it ingredients, like it makes an
Okay.
so I I I think that's where your confusion was probably stemming from. But in this case, it would be better to make it just a without the S.
Okay. And then I have the same sort of question for the lower case ingredient. Is it always uh in the
With the,
plural or in the singular?
so in this case, so it's how we're using it, right? So in this
Okay.
case, for this this is the where we're declaring the ingredients, right? So you want to look at the
Hmm.
root, like where does it stem from? Where is it being created from, right? So in
Hmm.
this case, this one we created ingredients, but like even like it even tells you like if you hover, that's another good thing about the tool, the TypeScript, like hovering over ingredients, we see that it's shaped. It has this const, it has this const ingredients, and then it's ingredient, right? It's ingredient, but an array of ingredients. So that tells us that it's more than one ingredient. So we're trying to use our naming convention to indicate like what it is. So in this case, this is ingredients because it's a list of ingredients. It's plural. So it's
Okay.
so we want it to literally be in the sense of like what it actually is. So if it was just one ingredient, then it should be ingredient. But if since it's a list of ingredients, an array of ingredients, then we want to call it plural.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, no worries. All right. Any other questions that I can address? No? Perfect. 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 Ooh. Okay. Source. So now we're getting on our image tag. This was unexpected for me. Type string null is not assignable to type string undefined. Type null is not assignable to type string undefined. Okay. Would anybody like to guess why we're getting this error? Is I like to ask this one. It's on the same line of the last one I asked, the last couple that I asked with this, because like if you see this, like it goes back to this like this undefined. So the hint is usually like in the null, like so this is type strike string null. So this is like this telling us like where we're getting, not where, but like the value that it's evaluating uh can be um null. So the value that is evaluating can be null, but it's saying it's not assignable to type string undefined. So this is saying not assignable to type string undefined. Like we had the last one is like not assignable to type string slash never because like it's possible that it's never there. But in this case, this is kind of on the same lines of the never because this could be it can return undefined. So what it's telling us is that we need to do one of those checks. So we need to do a check to ensure that these items exist, right? Because it's saying that based on how our typing is set up, these items can come back uh null, which can return an undefined value. Uh so we want to make sure that we're going to tell it that hey, this value is always going to be valid. So one way we can do that is we can do this bow, and then we can do a check. Let's say, how do we want to do this? Since we're checking, because we need to check that the mill.string thumb exists and the string mill, since we're using both of. And the way we could do that is, let's do it like, I say mill dot and oh, did I use the right one? Oh, we might do, there it goes. Yeah. And make it a little bit cleaner. I'd find it. So this was the shorthand to tell it, okay, we're checking, so mill dot string thumb. So it's saying, okay, if that's true, if it has a truthy value, and mill dot string mill, and then we put this. So because these two are true, then it's going to allow us to be able to call this image, and then we should still see. Oh, hold on, I gotta refresh. Oh no. Are we getting an error? Oh, we added a new package. So I gotta restart my dev server. Oh, does a whole I just wanted to I never even I never even restarted it. Uh-oh. Run on 75. Put up at 70. Oh, I gotta run away. That's interesting. Let's see what 75 does. I got a hung pull. Well, I gotta, is it in here? This is probably it. Yeah. Okay, that's why. So it did need to be resurfaced, restarted. All right, there it goes. So now it is rendering as expected. All right. So it's working as expected. And then this was the new code. So yeah, we're still getting our image, which is a good sign. That means this is working. We're good on that.
Yes. Although I also mine also doesn't like any of my meals. I don't know the word meal, the lowercase word meal. Um
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why, but it's still counting all of those as TypeScript errors as well.
Oh. Oh, you mind sharing your code for me?
Yeah, not at all. Um Let me see. Okay. I'll put it in the Slack channel.
Perfect. Yeah, you can do that, or you can share your screen, whichever.
Okay, I'll share my screen. That might be easier.
Yeah, that way we can just go through it for you.
Okay, cool, cool. All right. Let me do that. Share.
Okay, I hit allow. It should be sharing it.
All right. Okay. So I will
So
scroll
we're
down. You
just
can.
uh, okay. No type of dependency list. It's coming from the dependency. I think I know what this might be from.
Oh, good.
Scroll up real quick if you don't mind.
Sure.
Well, the use state is working. The use of okay, so we got our meal, so that we got that. Uh, yeah, scroll down for me. Let me make so we're doing, and then that's only on the. Oh, we're not getting it on the ID, are we? Nope. Okay. Uh, so actually, I am not. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay. I see. It's you're using parentheses instead of the array.
Oh, oops. Oops, oops,
Yeah.
oops. Okay. Does that need to be, do I need to change this one specifically into an array?
Yeah, so to put
Or,
the mill, so the
uh-huh.
mill needs to be in the array brackets. The
Okay.
Yeah, because it's a dependency array. So it's expecting an array, but it didn't get
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
that should fix that one. You're getting another error I see at the bottom? Okay. Perfect. Okay. So that is why are we getting it on? So yeah, that's what you're talking about. So the source, that one because we need to add our conditional, the meal, dot string meal. Can you hover over the first the meal?
Yes.
Let's oh, this meal is possibly null, but it shouldn't be because let me see, what am I doing different? Oh, mm, move that real quick. Move your mouse real quick.
Sure.
So the tooltips. Oh, okay. So, it's because so there's a check. So if you go above the return,
Mm-hmm.
and then I have a check. I have a check that checks if mill exists. If not,
Okay.
returns a so here. So you can do like if you do like if. And then do the if and then like put the bang. Oh, I remember that one. The exclamation point. Oh, so you'll put it in the parentheses, and then the exclamation point, and then mill, and then uh outside of the parentheses, space, and then return. And then let's see, that should it did not get it. So you could then and then put do this the space and then p tag. Oh, because we're not trying. No. Yeah, you keep the return. So then
Okay.
space and do the
Oh,
put it.
people.
Yeah, p tag,
Okay.
and then you can put like loading mills, fetching mills, or something like that. And then that did not fix it. That should have fixed it because then mills can't be. Put a space after if. I wonder if it's
Okay.
upset. I don't. Nope. Okay, hover over Mills for me again.
Sure.
Mills is possibly no. It shouldn't possibly be no because there's a check before. Okay, so maybe our mills upstream. Okay, let's track our mills down. So let's go. Let's start with the
Okay.
yeah, go up to the. So we're not getting a mills error anywhere else. Yeah, go up. Oh, okay. Scroll back down. I see what the
Okay.
issue. Um, that's extra. So you already have that checked for the
I
loading.
do already. Okay, I do, don't
Yeah, so
I?
scroll
Yeah.
down. And then you should be able to get rid of that code. So that was probably yeah, okay. That's yeah, get rid of that extra return statement as well. Because
Okay. Get rid of all
it's
this
saying that
stuff.
yeah, Mills doesn't exist
Okay.
because the our return statements before is always gonna be valid. Well,
Okay.
so
Okay.
now you shouldn't have any errors.
That fixed it. Thank you. All right, I'm
No
gonna
worries.
give back the computer.
Okay.
There we
Any
go.
other questions about that? Anything else? No? Okay. So they'll give us some time back because the rest of the classes is gonna be you going through and then just to get some hands-on TypeScript practice, uh it'll be like transforming some of your other files to TypeScript as well. So we would go in and like the mill list, you can go in and transform the mill list to TypeScript. So that's gonna be mainly your homework for the next week. I'll give you like a little some quick reading, maybe like one or two quick reading assignments. I have to check it. But most of your homework is just gonna be just getting that hands-on practice with the TypeScript and then everything else. So like, and this is also a good point. So this is like just I'm just gonna say this is like just hands-on, like right. So you can transforming stuff to TypeScript. You're gonna want to remember to change it to .txs files to tell it does TypeScript. And if it's just like a regular .js file, then you're gonna want to change it to a TS file without the X, right? And then just doing whatever, like adding your stylings to whatever, using your like Daisy UI components, making the application yours and all that fun stuff. And then so I'll do the same with this one. I'll transform everything into TypeScript and then we'll go from there. Yeah. It it may seem like a little tedious, but feel free, like if you are like having issues, get hung up anywhere, you have the TypeScript reference. If you want to ask me any questions, you can ask me questions. If you run into any complicated questions or issues, then of course you can use AI to help you troubleshoot and learn more. One thing I would say that's a good practice, like if you ever need to use AI to troubleshoot something, then you could also use it in that way to help you understand like oh so one thing I do is I always tell AI, I was like, hey, this is what I did this. Like I was like, I'm getting this error. I thought that this was valid because of this reason. And then like a very simple explanation, like I thought it was valid because of this reason. And then like tell me what I'm getting wrong and then tell me like how I can go about fixing it or something like that. And then AI, it gives you like it's a good way to connect like what your thought process had wrong, and then you also see like, oh, I was getting confused because of this, or because I thought it worked just like how this thing worked, right? And then if you like start picking apart those type of things, it also helps you understand like your own thought process with coding because everybody has different thought processes. Like I've been a lot of the stuff has been me telling you like what some of like the best practices are, what other developers do, what I do, like stuff like that. But a lot of it'd be helpful like if you understand your own thought process, like how you think of coding, how you think in coding and stuff like that. The better you understand yourself, the better you are as a developer, I think. So, um, I think that's a good way to do it as well. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. But that's since that will be what the rest of the time is going to be done for anyway. You can you take the time, you can finish out class working out that way, or you can take the time since you're going to be doing it throughout the rest of the week, you can just take this time back for yourself. Any questions or anything for me? Nope. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you. I know it's a lot, but y'all have a good rest of your weekend.
Thanks, you do
Thanks,
the
you too.
same.
Of course. Bye bye.
Bye.